had a teammate named Benji Radic, and this guy was awesome. And Benji was not any of the things that you would think of as a cage fighter. By example, college dropout, just for example, didn't have a lot of support at home, in and out of trouble, school as he was growing up. It wasn't any of these things. In fact, Benji did go to school. Benji graduated. He went into trade school. He became an electrician, but not he worked for an electrician or he worked at an electrical company. He was licensed. I believe that's a 4-year program, just like for a plumbing license, but he did it all and he was successful and he was clean and he was busy. He had a great truck and he was good at answering his phone. If you ever need anything done electrical wise, call Benji. And if he said he would do it, at the time he said he would do it for the price that he said he would do it for, you never had to wonder. He's just a special guy. Everyone liked him. Then girls liked him. But he wasn't that guy that because he was handsome and because he had things going his way, all of a sudden he needed a bunch of girls. No, he just the one girlfriend. He treated her wonderfully. But I saw that and observed it. He treated everybody very nice. And he got believed in by a very connected athlete named Dennis Hallman. Dennis Hallman was in the UFC before Dana White and Joe Silva were involved. So Dennis, at the crossover, people knew him and people liked him. And Dennis used whatever goodwill he had stored up at that time to call Joe Silva and vouch for an attempt to get signed his student Benji Radic. And Joe liked him, but Joe hadn't seen enough and didn't get the contract. So Benji would go have another fight. Benji would knock somebody out again in the first round, and Dennis Hallman would simply email Joe Silva back with everything that he had said about him in the previous one, and then add, and has now knocked another guy out in the first round, and then he would change his record to go up by 1. And Joe would write him back, but it wasn't quite enough. It's just not quite what we're looking for, and Dennis accepted that, moved on with his life, got Benji another fight, at which time Benji would go out in the very first round, knock the opponent out. Dennis Hallman would send Joe Silva the exact same email, and then add at the bottom an additional 1 in the win column to his record. And this happened 3 or 4 times, and Joe Silva said, I want him in the UFC. And Benji goes right to the UFC, and he does the same thing that he had done on the regional show. And to explain to you how hard that is, to explain to you how hard it is to go out and compete well, sometimes you'll get the outcome you want. I'm not telling you that every person in their debut to the UFC loses, but I am telling you everybody, but maybe a handful of 5, don't perform to the best of their abilities, but Benji did. And there was once upon a time, and then he started training with Team Quest. I got to know him very well personally. And there was a strike. Dan Henderson, they called it an H-bomb, and Dan was always known for his big right hand. Always known for his big right hand. All the articles, and this was from Japan and Pride, the work that he would do here in the United States to his local gym, and the way people when they come in and excited to meet him would talk about him and that great big H-bomb. Well, that's the same exact move that Benji Radic threw. And Benji threw it the exact same way as Dan Henderson. As a matter of fact, if you talk to Benji and ask him where he learned to throw it like that, he would privately tell you from Dan Henderson. But it wasn't the straight, it wasn't the power, and it wasn't the right. It was the setup. And Benji was a wrestler. Dan was a wrestler. Benji didn't use very much wrestling in fights. Dan didn't use very much wrestling in fights, but they both would offer the threat. The threat of the takedown is more damaging than the actual takedown. You will get your opponent backing up. You will stop your opponent from throwing full power because it slows them down just a little bit. They will begin to drop their hands. And always consciously, sometimes subconsciously, because of the takedown. So Benji would come out. He would fake. He would fake a shot, and while never stopping his motion, and that's the key to this move. When you fake, you never stop your motion. You change elevation, but your motion the whole time is going forward. You fake, you come up, you throw the right hand, you knock somebody out. Uriah Faber, who saw Benji do it and went and asked him, and Benji said, I got it from Dan Henderson. Then Uriah Faber went either to Dan Henderson or started watching Dan Henderson and started throwing that same shot. And I share that with you because, this was Benji's move. I felt that move so many times. I felt it in practice. I've had him break it down. Because I also had learned that move from Dan Henderson. The difference when Dan threw it or when I threw it is Dan would knock somebody out. I would miss the opponent. Not just that I wouldn't hurt the opponent, I would miss. I wouldn't hit him. So my shot, it was too much. And I go to Benji and we'd all work on it together. And it got to where I could get a little bit of respect from it myself. But even while being a very basic technique, of all of Team Quest, and we were known for dirty boxing, and we're the ones that coined the phrase clinch work. But that one specific move, that was our number one. That was our number one staple of our team. And Benji did it so well. Benji went off. It was called the International Fight League. And he was a team member, and he was doing great, and he suffered an injury. And what I had always wanted for Benji, when I knew that he had a successful life as an electrician, beautiful girl, and having the kids, like just everything going Benji's way, what I wanted for him was for him to be able to live his dream, to get into the UFC, which was his dream. To get some fights and get some celebrity behind him and build up that portfolio and say, "Hi, shucks, look what I did in my younger day or within my spare time." But there was a change in Benji's mind. There was a change. The sport that he took very carefree, because like all of his eggs were not in that basket. And it was also his social life and being around the guys and pleasing Dennis Hallman, who he looked up so much. There was a time where those memories weren't enough. He needed a championship. There was a time where he had lost a fight and it embarrassed him. And because of the embarrassment, he now, in his mind, needs to win 10 fights to make up for that one. He was just too hard on himself. I remember when he did it, he was too hard on himself. He needed a surgery. He had to get his leg all completely redone before he comes back. He worked through all of that. Like, Benji Radach epitomized being a fighter. Not aggression. Not where you're mean or you're fast or proud and you go attack something else. When that something else attacks you back, when life itself knocks you down, do you stay there or do you get up? And Benji Radach every single time got up. Benji will be remembered as a fighter. He'll be remembered as a friend. He's a very handsome guy. He's a very charming guy. Never lied to, never hurt, never stole from anybody, never wanted to. He will remember very fondly. And it's sad. It's a hard moment because his life was cut very short. I got this news about 8 minutes ago. And I believe we lost Benji about 24 hours ago. But Benji was awesome as a teammate and a friend. And Benji, I will not say goodbye, but I will tell you, until we meet again,